Alexei Navalny's funeral is underway in Moscow. The government claims that Russia's most famous dissident died 2 weeks ago of a blood clot. His wife says he was murdered. Today, Navalny is known around the world for his fearlessness in standing up to Vladimir Putin and his death in a penal colony. But my next guest met him long before that. As a teenager growing up in Moscow when Navalny was campaigning to be mayor. Today, Victoria Arakelyan credits Navalny with inspiring her to become an investigative journalist for the BBC. Victoria, good morning, and thank you for coming in on what I can only imagine is a difficult morning for you.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. It's very important to be able to honor him this way today.
What was that moment like for you as a Russian to first of all hear about his death?
I'm 28 years old, so I haven't really been through much of deaths in my family or anything like that. So I didn't know what this moment of grief feels like, to be honest. And what people are saying, like when they get this phone call that their loved one died and everything sinks. And that morning I found out what that means, because the moment I read the news, I just felt everything sinking and my heart rate went up and I was frozen. No one could believe this moment would ever come, even though it was sadly to be expected probably, but it was still unbelievable. And I was stricken with grief, to be honest.
He seemed invincible.
He did. He absolutely did.
Why do you think that is?
I think that's because no matter what happened to him, from the first arrests at the protest to the poisoning with literal chemical weapon, he always just sprung back to life with the same humor, with the same kind of smiles and jokes, and never shown any fear whatsoever.
You're 28 now, as you mentioned, but you met Navalny when you were 14?
Yes, I was 14, yeah.
What do you still remember about that moment?
I remember just this immense feeling of hope, because it was his mayoral campaign. And he would just tour the neighborhoods, and he would come to my small neighborhood that no politicians really frequented that much. And we were sitting in the park, and it was a very sunny summer day. Actually, it was my birthday. I now remember. It was my birthday. And it was just sunny and amazing. And he was talking to people and answering questions, and there was no security, nothing. He was just honestly talking to people and sharing his vision for the better Russia, and people believed him and wanted to just shake his hand and stand by him.
Why do you think those conversations made a difference?
No one really talked to Russian people just like that honestly and openly and with sincere care. Like, he sincerely cared that what he wanted most in life, I think, is for Russians to have better future that they deserve, and for them to stop feeling this helplessness that was imposed on them by the government, the current government. It made people believe that some change is possible. And me as a teenager, I think he was the person who awakened me and many more people like me to, at this young age, believe that we can change something.
Was it mostly young people in the park that day?
No, it was not. There was a lot of elderly people. I went with my grandma, who adored him, and there's all kinds of people. There were school children younger than me, but also very old guys and all kinds of people.
What did your grandmother like about him?
I think that he always stand for truth, and he fought for truth, and she just admired his bravery and his vision for Russia.
You're an investigative journalist. I'm wondering what impact Navalny's own investigations into corruption have had on you.
A huge impact, obviously, because I've been. I wanted to become a journalist since childhood, basically, but I've been thinking of different genres, and I didn't quite know my place. But when I was watching his anti-corruption documentaries and investigations, and I think that's how I came to know about Bellingcat, I realized that, wow, you can do that. And specifically with open source, you don't have to be this person who can sneak behind the closed doors. You can actually find stuff through open source. And that's basically exactly what I'm doing now. And I think it's hugely thanks to him, because he showed me that's possible, and it's an important thing to do, to hold people accountable.
As someone looking from the outside, the other thing that stands out to me is that he did those kinds of investigations, but he did it with a level of humor injected. Do you think that that was an effective tool for him?
Of course, and I think not only in his investigations, but generally in his attitude and how he held himself through all this time. His humor was this thing about him that supported so many people, because he, even being in the prison, being tortured basically and held in inhumane conditions, he was the one sharing his humor and joking on Instagram, and people would find consolation in what he is saying from prison while they are relatively free. So yeah, his humor was definitely a very important aspect.
Many Russians feel that, well, they couldn't understand why Navalny would return to Russia after he was poisoned. And some might characterize it as a waste of his life, because many felt it was inevitable that Putin would have him killed. How did you see it?
I don't think it was a waste. First of all, I think that for him as a person, it just was not possible to do it any other way. I don't think he ever even considered the idea of not coming back to Russia, because that's exactly what he stood for all the time, and he was very consistent in his stance. He was always saying that Russia is his country and he's not afraid, and he will be with his people at all times, and there was no option for him to do otherwise. And I don't think it was a waste, because even today you can see all those people who came to his funeral, who came to the church to say their last goodbyes, and whilst it's all immensely sad, you just look at those faces and those very sincere tears, and how people are hugging each other and not afraid to chant his name and chant Russia will be free, even though they're just surrounded by cops. That tells you it was not a waste. I do believe that these people, he touched so many hearts that it just will not disappear in vain, for sure.
You talked about being with your grandmother when you had your first interaction with Alexei Navalny. And I understand that he made an impact in her life in terms of her birthday. What can you tell me about that story?
It was absolutely crazy. So it was in 2019, and right before my grandma's birthday, I had just like 40 followers on Twitter. It was not a huge account by any means. And I just decided to post that I really want Alexei Navalny to just film a little congratulations to my grandma. And I told it to my husband, and he was like, "You're completely crazy. Why would this happen? Like, you don't have any following or whatever." I'm like, wait, I know Twitter magic happens sometimes. Just let's see. So I put off my phone, I go to the shower, I go back, I open my phone, I open Twitter, and I see that it has like thousands retweets. And then I go to my email, and his spokeswoman, Navalny spokeswoman, Kira Yarmish, she sends me a video of Navalny just holding his phone and saying my grandma's name and saying congratulations, happy birthday, stay great, and I wished her luck and all this kind of stuff. And the next day I show her at her birthday, I open my laptop, I show her, and she had to watch it like 5 times to believe it's actually true. I think everyone thought it's like some kind of a neural network or whatever, like AI or something, because it was just like people in Russia and like post-Soviet countries were not used to politics being able to just say, you know what, I'll just film this.
And reach out.
Yeah. It was amazing. And by this day, of course, we watch it like several times per day because it's such a great personal memory.
On a day like today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate you coming in today, Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Victoria Arakelyan is an investigative journalist for the BBC. She now lives in Toronto.